We as Christians have also been given a warning cry about events that are likely to occur during our time. Jesus Christ warned us that the end times would be marked by a wholesale falling away from the truth. Jesus said in the Olivet prophecy in Matthew chapter 24, verses 10 and 11, "And then many will be offended, will betray one another, and will hate one another. Then many false prophets will rise up and deceive many." Now, Strong's 46:24 is the word scandalizo. I did practice this before. I got a few of these and I totally messed that up. But basically it means to scandalize. And from G46:25, it means to entrap, to trip up, stumble, or entice to sin. Apostasy or displeasure, or make to offend. That is the word that is used here for offended. Now the Apostle Paul also gave us a warning in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 and verse 3. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 and verse 3. "Let no one deceive you by any means, for that day will not come unless the falling away comes first, and the man of sin is revealed, the son of perdition." Now, Strong's 646, apostasia, means of the same as a defection of the truth. Apostasy is the word we're more familiar with, or fallen away, or to forsake. A couple other scriptures that speak on this. 1 Timothy chapter 4 and verse 1. 1 Timothy chapter 4 and verse 1. "Now the Spirit expressly says that in the later times some will depart from the faith, giving heed to deceiving spirits and doctrines of demons." 2 Timothy chapter 4 and verses 3 and 4. "For the time will come when they will not endure sound doctrine, but according to their own desires, because they have itching ears, they will heap up for themselves teachers, and they will turn their ears away from the truth and be turned aside to fables." Now, some of us saw this happen on a large scale within the Church of God. Those were difficult times. Many fell away. We who went through that can now sit back and say, "Whew, I'm glad that's over with. And I survived." But again, many did not. I know some who walked away very bitter because they believed that the truth that they were following was now all lies. They felt they have given up much to observe and follow the truth, and they saw that the church was moving away from the truth, so they left. Now they actually started to believe that all the things that they were doing were lies, that the truth was all a lie. A few were very strong in the faith, however, and they knew the truth and saw that the church was moving away from the truth, so they left and found others like themselves and formed new organizations adhering to the truth, like United. Many, however, continued with the church and their new truth and doctrines, which really was not new, but concepts and ideas from mainstream Christianity. Many went along with the changes and decided for themselves to start attending local churches that taught the same things. Why be part of this wayward church now when you can be in a church in your hometown. So a lot of people started doing that. Some of us just had enough of the apostasy and left. I and a few others are glad that God was still working with us and led us back to the truth, as I stayed with the church and endured with a lot of that until it was just too much. And there have been many splits since this big one. We cannot let our guard down, believing those prophecies have been fulfilled in the past. That huge apostasy. And we need no longer to worry about being deceived. Brethren, Satan has not finished his work of deceiving God's people. And we need to be aware where he is at work. We can look around and find all kinds of teachers that people are heaping up for themselves, teachers that have turned from the truths we were taught and have begun teaching heresy within God's people. How can we stand strong against these false teachers and hold to the truth of our faith? We can find the answers in the book of Jude, an epistle that cries out the warning of a danger to God's people. Jude chapter 1 and verse 3. Jude chapter 1 verse 3. Beloved, while I was very diligent to write to you concerning our common salvation, I found it necessary to write to you exhorting you to contend earnestly for the faith which was once delivered, or once for all was delivered to the saints. Jude felt it necessary to change his plans to write to them about their salvation, to instead write about the need to contend earnestly for the faith which was once delivered. Strong's 1864 epignon. Oh boy, this is a really tough one. I've tried practicing this one here, but it's epignodozomi. Yeah, that's a good one. This is actually from two different ones. Basically, it means to struggle for, earnestly contend for, to struggle for, to contend, to exercise great effort and exertion for something. The word was used for athletic contest and struggle and effort of the athletes in their games. And it's also derived from Strong 75, which is agonizomi, which means to struggle, to compete for the prize, to contend with an adversary, to endeavor to accomplish something, fight, labor fervently, strive. We get our word agonize from this word. Picture two wrestlers struggling with one another for the prize. That's the idea behind contend. Basically what Jude is telling us is don't let anyone pin your faith to the ground without a struggle. It's worth fighting for. So don't be afraid to get in the dirt and wrestle for it. Satan wants to bring an evil report about us to the Father. What is the faith that we need to be contending for? Number one, this faith is the body of Christian doctrine found in the Scriptures in content and practice. It encompasses all that we believe about God, the Bible, sin, Christ, human nature, and so on. Number two, the beliefs that make up our faith have been delivered once for all in the Scriptures. They are our absolutes, our solid nucleus of truth that cannot be changed, erased, or mold it to suit someone's ideas. And number 3, God has delivered this faith not to a privileged few, but to the saints, that be in us. God has called us out of this world, and He has given us His truth. We must know that truth, study that truth, and hold on dearly to the truth of God. I'm not saying that an apostasy is happening right now, but we are constantly warned of one or more to come. 2 Peter chapter 2, verses 1 and 2, but there were also false prophets among the people, even as there will be false prophets among you, who will secretly bring in destructive heresies, even denying the Lord who bought them, and bring on themselves swift destruction. And many will follow their destructive ways, because of whom the way of truth will be blasphemed. Our doctrines are very strong and based on biblical truth. Our church organization is very protective of the truth. In order for one of our fundamental beliefs to be changed, first a doctrinal statement or a paper has to be written up and prepared, showing why a change is needed, backed with biblical knowledge. Second, the Council of Elders must review it, and if they do disagree with this change based on biblical knowledge, the matter ends right then and there. However, if they see that a change in our doctrine is needed based on the findings of the paper, it must go to vote by the General Conference of Elders, all ordained elders of the church. And only if 75% of all elders vote in favor of the change will the change be made. I like that. It reminds me of Acts 15 when they were discussing about circumcision. It wasn't just James, the leader of the Jerusalem church, saying, "This is my ruling." No, Peter was there, said his piece. Paul and Barnabas said their piece, and there was others. And they voted together. That's why I like the structure of our government, in a sense, in the United Church of God. But back when the apostasy occurred in the church, one man, counseled by very few, made the changes to our doctrines. It was his way or the highway. That cannot happen in United. We're going over the fundamental beliefs of the church for 2 reasons. First, we need to truly know and understand what we believe as members of the church. Before I gave you the study booklet, could you name all 20 of the fundamental beliefs? I can't even say if I would remember all of them. We need to know what we stand for and understand our belief in God, in Jesus Christ. And we can because they have preserved the truth in the Bible and have given us their spirit so that we can know the things of God. 1 Timothy chapter 4 and verse 6. 1 Timothy chapter 4 and verse 6. If you instruct the brethren in these things, you will be a good minister or servant of Jesus Christ, nourished in the words of faith and of good, sound doctrine, which you have carefully followed. Secondly, we need to understand completely our doctrines without question so that we can defend our belief in God. 1 Peter chapter 3 and verse 15, but sanctified the Lord God in your hearts, and always be ready to give a defense to everyone who asks you a reason for the hope that is within you, with meekness and fear. We always must be ready to give an answer to family, friends, co-workers, and others that ask why we keep these days and in our other beliefs that we have in God. So we really need to know what to say. The church does not want us to blindly follow its teachings. Before we can explain the truth with all of our heart, we must examine everything carefully then and hold fast what is good. Hold fast what is good. That's 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 21. That's why we need to study our beliefs and why I feel it's very important to go through our fundamental beliefs. Once we have proven the truth to be the truth, it is our duty to hold on to it and never let go, and to pass it on to others who are interested. We should not keep it to ourselves when someone asks sincerely, nor should we be ashamed of what we believe in. Christ gives us strong warning in Luke chapter 9, verse 26. Whoever is ashamed of me and my words, of him the Son of Man will be ashamed when he comes in his own glory. Brethren, there's troubles in the world here are increasing. You can see it in the news. The politics of our nation are, looks like it's headed for a civil war. One of those parties is against God and our beliefs. One day we could be persecuted for our beliefs, as some of our brethren are in other nations right now. Satan is attacking our church and our beliefs, and he will not rest until Jesus Christ returns and puts them in chains. We must not be deceived into following after false teachers. We need to truly know the truth of God as written in His Word. We must be alert. We need to be strong in our faith. And we can be with the knowledge of God.